a film has come out. It's a film series called Space Command Redemption. This is an ambitious series that is inspired by Star Trek and even has some actors from Star Trek, including Doug Jones, as part of the series. You can see the trailer on the Film Threat Trailers channel. We have the filmmaker Marc Scott Zicree joining us today. Marc, thank you for joining us on the show. Congratulations on the film.
Thank you. And it's really good to be here. So I'm here at my own studio, Space Command Studios, with all the robots and spacesuits and all that stuff. And couldn't be happier to be where I am talking to you guys.
Well, we want to get a little tour before before the end of the interview here.
Sure.
But this is an ambitious series where you have, name talent, the special effects, the quality of everything from the costuming to the sets. I mean, it really is. You've gone all out.
Oops,
and we lost him.
We lost Marc.
We lost him. Here, he's coming back. Coming back. Here we go. It's all good, Marc.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Alan.
Modern
it's all
age.
good. Technical difficulties. It happens on the bridge. But this movie got a 9 out of 10 from our reviewer, Bobby Lapierre.
Thanks, Bobby.
Bobby just, and by the way, we just passed it on to him. Said you may or may not like this. Check it out. Whatever. Bobby.
We lost him again.
Tends to like the. Right. Here we go.
We lost Marc. Okay.
I'll let you do it, Alan.
All right. There we go.
Cool.
Here we go.
Hey, Marc, you're back. It's all good.
Yeah.
All right. So tell us how you put this project together. Obviously, you had something of a budget. You were able to hire SAG actors from Trek. How did you get the funding? I know was there a Kickstarter and then other private fund? So tell us about. Maybe not walk around the studio.
The studios and the networks. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
There we go. Yeah. Maybe like stop and stay in one place with good internet at this point. But tell us how you got the funding for the project.
Absolutely. So I'd written for all the major studios and networks, Star Trek Next Gen, DS9, Babylon 5, on and on, wrote the Twilight Zone companion. So I really knew the genre, and I wanted to do a show that was inspiring like the original Star Trek. It inspired me. And so rather than trusting the networks and the studios not to screw it up, I reached out to my fans with a crowdfunding campaign, Kickstarter. And our first campaign, our target was $75,000 to raise in 2 months. We raised that in 3 days and kept going and raised $221,000. And then through a series of Kickstarter campaigns and selling investment shares for $7,500 each, I was able to raise $4 million. And with that, I've been shooting 2-hour stories that link together to form a season of Space Command. So it's a 12-hour season. So we're finishing hour 6 now. Space Command Redemption is the first 2 hours. And my wife and I write and direct and produce it. And I have my own studio full of spaceships and robots and all that stuff.
Well, I did fail to mention that previous to creating Space Command Redemption, you've written for all these shows. You know the space. What made you take the leap? This is an important question I want to ask. You have worked professionally in the industry for some of the biggest sci-fi shows. Look up Marc Zicree look him up on IMDb. What made you make the leap from that to making your own independent project? What was your thought process?
Yeah, well, it was that I just wrote a book called Greenlighting Yourself that talks about how people can do this. When I started in television back when I was in my early 20s, you needed a studio and a network to reach an audience of millions of people, and making any show, any movie, anything cost millions of dollars. It was impossible to do it on your own, pretty much, with very few exceptions. And so, but now, science fiction never predicted we would all have video cameras in our pockets. And so now with the video cameras that we've got, with the ability to edit on a Mac or a PC, with the internet, with crowdfunding, you don't need a studio or a network to reach millions of people with high quality science fiction content. And so I'd spent all these decades learning my craft, building my base of incredibly talented people, and off we went. I have a YouTube channel called Mr. Sci-Fi, and we just hit 100,000 subscribers. and it's had millions of hits. And again, science fiction is unique, I think, in the fact that the fans become the pros, and they maintain contacts with their fans. So I was just at WonderCon, and there were fans, and there were the stars of the science fiction shows and movies, and it's not arrogant or exclusive the way Hollywood tends to be, and so I trusted my fans, I trusted my audience, and because I'm the same as them essentially. And then I reached out to all these actors I'd worked with or knew, Robert Picardo and Mira Furlan and Bill Mumy and Doug Jones and James Hong and on and on. And it's a dream come true. I mean, we're shooting even now. We're continuing to shoot. And I have 3 sound stages, and I'm at the top of the food chain. I don't need approval from anybody to make this. It's total freedom.
So the book is called Greenlight Yourself. I wasn't aware of this.
Yeah, it's called Greenlighting Yourself, and it's from my publisher, Silman James, who also publishes The Twilight Zone Companion, which I wrote when I was in my 20s. And it's just a step-by-step, because I found that most of the books on how to make it in film and TV are outdated in their advice. They say, well, you need a great script, and then you need to get an agent, and blah, 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 blah. Well, you don't need any of that. How many TV shows and movies have great scripts? Very few. And all you need to do is pull together enough money to roll camera, and off you go. It's not as hard as people think. So I wanted to write a book that walked people through how I did what I did, and kind of demystify this whole process.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for that. I wasn't aware of the Greenlight Yourself, but I think we're at the cusp of an indie film revolution.
Yes.
When you look at the quality of the effects in Space Command Redemption, which I'm actually going to show people we will put the link in the description to the website.
Cool.
You can get all the information. There's merch. There's a way to contact you. You can follow on Facebook. There are links to where to get the film on Amazon. It's all inspired by classic sci-fi. I would say while there's Star Trek, there's also a little Forbidden Planet in there.
Yes, deliberately. Yeah,
so. No, and it's incredible. I feel like there is going to be a big, as the industry contracts, traditional Hollywood contracts, we are going to see more and more of people like yourself crossing over from professional, having worked in the industry and written for Star Trek professionally, crossing over into making independent projects. And you've basically paved the path for doing it. We have a lot of questions from our audience, over 500 people watching live. I want to get to their questions.
Cool.
But I feel like you're ahead of the game. We did a story actually this week on Film Threat about how some writers, professional writers in the writer's room, they're doing DoorDash now just to survive.
Ah, wow. Jesus. Yeah, it's terrible.
It's in the Hollywood Reporter. These are like people who've been in the writer's room, they're people that are writer's room writers are contacting executive producer friends or heads of shows, and they aren't working. The strike, I think, did no one any favors. I think it's very obvious. And so I don't know. I really admire what you've done. We've got so many questions here.
Sure. You bet.
Get right to it.
But one thing I want to mention, Chris, before we go to the questions is I really, how independent film kind of rose to prominence in the 70s, an alternative to the studios. I think we're now entering an age of independent television where everything from how it's financed to how
Nope. He'll come back. Pesky internet.
I know.
Freedom as novelists to essentially pull the trigger on making content. That's my goal.
Well, let's go to the questions. I'm going to answer this for you. Lord of the Films, where can we watch Space Command Redemption? The URL is in the description of the show. It's spacecommand-theseries.com, spacecommand-theseries.com, or go on Amazon.
Yeah, it's on Amazon for rental or purchase, and it's also on Google Play at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. So available multiple places, and check out the website for even more resources and lots of fun stuff. So thank you for your question, Lord of the Films. From Rumble, question from Adelis24. With the advances in AI, do you foresee it becoming easier for you to produce indie sci-fi stories?
Possibly, but the problem, of course, is that you take the human you basically remove a lot of VFX artists from the equation, and that's not necessarily a good thing. I work with concept artists, I work with VFX artists. I love the collaboration, and if you just have an AI, it might produce something that looks great, but I don't know yet. I mean, it'll be easier, but it might not be better, so it's we'll see how it goes. But I don't want it to take human creativity, out of the mix.
Solomon Thornton has a question for you. Greetings, Sir Mark. I am a huge sci-fi nerd. Any advice for writing and directing sci-fi?
Yes. First of all, don't let anything stop you. Be the drop of water that wears down the mountain. It's the people that I've seen succeed are not the most talented necessarily. They're the most determined. They're the most they persevere. But if you want to speed your career up, if you want to write novels, go to the Clarion Writers Workshop. It's the leading science fiction writing workshop in the country. I highly recommend it. I'm a graduate of Clarion, and if you want to write TV and film, definitely apply to all the TV writing fellowships that the networks have and the studios have. But more than anything, just decide who you want to learn from. I wrote The Twilight Zone Companion to learn how to write and produce TV when I got out of college, because there were no classes in it. And I thought, well, let's study one of the greatest TV shows ever made. And all of those, George Clayton Johnson and Matheson and, Ted.
It's all good.
Nope.
He'll be back.
He'll be back. Yeah, he's come back.
Really was invaluable, because I was learning from the people, not the people who were theorizing about it, but the people who were actually doing it. And I was writing for TV by the time I was 22 or 23, and I started writing The Twilight Zone Companion when I was 21. So I was, you don't have to wait until you're 50 or 60. You can be very fast out of the gate if you're actually.
Okay, he'll be right back. It's all good. Thank you. Okay, next question here. From Rumble, ADLS24 asks, outside of LA, where does Mark foresee the landscape of modern indie films landing in the future? Will everyone be on their own, or will filmmakers localize around a new city like Nashville or Austin?
Well, the fun part is that it's the world now. It's the entire world. So, for instance, my development exec is based in London.
Okay. It's all good, folks.
My VFX team are in Germany and all over the place. Pakistan. I mean, it's the world. And when I call them on WhatsApp or we have a Zoom call, it's like they're in the room. And when I have my actors come in to shoot Space Command, I fly some of them in from Atlanta, some from New York. I don't think we. See, the lovely thing is, and also we were talking about VFX a moment ago. Some of my VFX artists are the people who designed Babylon 5 and won Emmys for Star Trek. But some of them are just hobbyists living in somewhere like East McKeesport, Pennsylvania. So I'm totally open to who has the ability, the talent to work with us. You don't need to. I don't look at the resume. I look at the work. And if someone can make a spaceship fly in a cool shot, well, come knocking at my door. It's marczicree@gmail.com if you want to build spacesuits or ray guns or be a PA. I mean, we're very open to that. And it takes thousands of people to make this stuff. But you can build that kind of team anywhere. All you have to do is bring your A game.
Right.
A lot of the problem is that people think that, unless I'm being paid millions, I'll just do a shitty job. And I bring my A game to everything I do. I started in animation. I was writing for Smurfs and He-Man and Super Friends and Real Ghostbusters. And I brought the same work ethic to that. I brought as much creativity to that as I did to Star Trek: The Next Generation or DS9 or any of the other shows. So it's you don't do a shitty job no matter what. You bring it up to the level you need it to be, and that's proven a great great boon to my career, certainly.
I'm looking at your credits on IMDb. This is crazy. The Real Ghostbusters, like so many Super Friends.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like He-Man, Incredible Hulk, animated, Smurfs. Wow, Mark. I didn't know. I didn't know. I'm just saying I didn't know.
Yeah.
Other great
It's been
questions. The nerd far away asks, "Hail, Mr. Zicree. Can actors greenlight themselves in a similar fashion? Interested
Yes.
in taking a non-conventional approach here?"
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And here's the trick of it. Science fiction is a great genre to work in because you go to the conventions like Comic-Con or WonderCon with
well,
he'll be back. He's back.
just from Aliens and Starship Troopers and so forth, and they want to work. You can pay $1,000 a day to an actor. It's not going to cost millions of dollars. Obviously you're not going to get Tom Cruise, but you'll get some. You can put together 3 or 4 actors who have a big fan following, and that can pull together. The real question with anything is what makes someone want to watch what you're making. And also, for instance, let's say you want to option a short story from a famous science fiction writer. Well, the World Science Fiction Convention and the World Fantasy Convention are where the writers go, the novelists. And so let's say you want to do a film based on a short story by George R.R. Martin or, Kevin J. Anderson, who does the Dune books, or whoever. And, that you can option those things for not a lot of money. Not novels. Novels are going to cost more money, but short stories won't. And that again gives you, hey, from the writer of Dune, from the writer of Game of Thrones, it gives you something to hang your hat on. So it's basically building a team of people who already have the fan following, and that works tremendously well. You can do the same thing in other genres too, but you just need to meet people in person. There's a writer named Brandon Sanderson who just raised $47 million on Kickstarter. And I had lunch with him a few years ago, and he wrote 14 novels before he sold one, his first novel. And he would just write them, send them as blind submissions, and get rejected and put them in a drawer and write the next one. But when I had lunch with him, he was one of the best-selling novelists in the world. And I said, "What changed?" And he said, "I realized I was going to have to go out and meet people." And he started going to science fiction conventions and meeting the editors and the publishers face to face. And that changed everything, because then it was personal, and he wasn't just a name on a stack of similar manuscripts. So I strongly believe in meeting people in person. Go where they are. It's worth spending a few $100 to go to New York Comic-Con or whatever. And that's fine. That's fine.
And I don't know, didn't we meet at Monsterpalooza? Was it
Yes.
Monsterpalooza? That's where we met. He'll be back.
And then you did a panel at, I think, San Diego Comic-Con about independent distributors, and I actually, followed your advice.
We talked there too.
Yes. And so again, it's like I went to you as an expert on film distributors, and I followed your advice, and it worked. So that's a perfect example of my methodology. See, most people ask advice of people who don't know what they're talking about,
right.
and then they follow that advice, and it's a disaster. It's sort of like if you're doing the same thing as everyone is doing, particularly everyone who's failing, you're going to fail too.
Right.
And so you have to really be very, very scrupulous about has the person I'm talking to who's advising me actually succeeded at what I'm asking them to advise me on. And that's super important. That's why I wrote a book recently with Guillermo del Toro, because I wanted to learn from him. And Rod Serling, I learned from Rod, and Ray Bradbury was another mentor. I mean, these are amazing men, and just phenomenal in what they've accomplished.
It really is like a networking thing at the nerd conventions, and it's like people are so accessible.
Yes.
And there really is a spirit of, hey, I've done it. It's actually not hard. And I can't tell you how many times I've run into people, and I was, the panelist, going to panels and just in the audience. Suddenly now I'm doing panels because I actually feel like I have something to contribute and help people. So
that's right. Yes.
Couple more questions here from Christopher Moonlight Productions. How do you market and sell your series in a way that reaches your fan base so you can bypass the distribution system?
Yes. Well, I started first of all, I structured each story as 2 hours that connects to the other episodes and um, and leads to a larger arcing story. So those can be split into 1 hour episodes or 2 hour films. And so that, first of all, helped me in terms of how I could sell it. Because, for instance, we're finishing the first season of the show, but we're already making the first 2 hours available. But beyond that, I started my own YouTube channel because I was having lunch with a friend of mine who was the showrunner on Walking Dead, Glenn Mazzara, and he said, "You know so much about science fiction, you should have your own YouTube channel." And the cool thing about that was it costs no money. I mean, you can have your own network on YouTube for free, and you can reach everyone in the world, basically. So I just started it, and I really didn't promote it much, but as I said, it has millions of hits, and I just hit 100,000 subscribers. YouTube just sent me a very nice award, and and so that starts to gather a fan base. And once you have a fan base, you can reach out to them directly. There's Kickstarter, there's Backers Kit, there's all sorts of things, and you try what works. And if it doesn't work, you say, well, who succeeded at this? Who can I have a conversation with? And the trick with getting advice from people who've succeeded is you don't ask for favors. You don't say, can you give me an agent? No, you ask for advice. You say, what have you done that has worked for you? That's all. Because most people are happy to share what worked for them. They just don't want to be having to vouch for you when they don't know you. And so essentially, and another thing you have to figure out is how much money you need to make and how much money. Like, I keep my overhead low. My wife and I still live in a rent-controlled apartment. We own our cars outright. I've earned millions of dollars as a writer, but I keep my expenses low so that I can do things like Space Command and buy giant robots and spaceship sets and all that stuff. Because one thing I do is I buy sets and costumes and props from big science fiction movies and TV shows when they close down, because they can be bought for cents on the dollar, and that can add production value to what we build fresh. And so I've got stuff from Aliens and Prometheus and Armageddon and
and there you go.
We're gonna,
here
yeah.
he's back.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and when I was a producer at Universal on Sliders, I asked if we could use all the sets and props and costumes from everything they'd ever made, and they said no one has asked us that question before, but we'll find out. And they came back and said, yeah, with a very few exceptions, yes. So we were using stuff from 12 Monkeys and Time Cop and on and on, Jurassic Park. And that was because I learned that trick from what Rod Serling had done on Twilight Zone. So, and that's now what I'm doing at Space Command as well. It's interesting. I'm the only writer who wrote for both Deep Space Nine and Babylon 5. And at the time, Deep Space Nine was costing, I think it was like $3 million an episode, and Babylon 5, its initial pattern budget was $785,000 per episode. It never cracked $1 million per episode. So I sat down with John Copeland, who was the producer on Babylon 5, because they were getting more effects, more fight scenes, more alien makeups, more everything than DS9 was getting for like a third of the money. And I said, how do you do it? And John told me, he said, most people will read a script and say it can't be done. He said, I'll read a script and say, how can it be done? And that changes the paradigm. Mm-hmm. So, you just figure out a way to make stuff go. And, and if you can't shoot an entire movie, then shoot for a day or two. Start, because if you have a day or two, that gives you footage that you can then use to build from. Because if you got some cool scenes or some cool visual effects or something, then you can show that to people. And then they can say, hey, I want to be part of this. And it builds from there.
Yeah. First of all, I just want to emphasize something you said earlier about just ask for advice. I get a lot of things where people come to me and they put the burden on me. Like, can you do this for me? You're right. I love helping people. Like, here's a phone number, talk to this person. Here's an email, talk to this person at this distributor. Yes. Here's the deal. Or I have a little thing I send to people that ask for Kickstarter advice. If you contact me at Film Threat, go to go to the Film Threat website, click on contact. I will send to your email a 14-page document about Kickstarter advice, like how to crowdfund. And I send it to people that ask for it. I love to help people because the more people, better. And as you were saying, also another thing you said that was great about the decentralization. You're working with people all over the world who are just fans and attracted to it. And also you gave out your email. There you go.
Yeah. And again, the reason is because I'm not afraid of people. I'm not afraid of the world. I mean, it's really interesting because for a long time, people have access to I give on my YouTube channel. I give out my email. I give out my phone number, and no one's misused it. No one has screwed me over. And you open yourself to the world, and the world really can be very rewarding emotionally and in every other way. And but also before Space Command, I had never raised money. I'd spent 30 years writing for the networks and the studios, and so I didn't know if I would succeed. I just said I'm willing to try. And but I also had people advising me, and I had people sort of studying Kickstarter and seeing what worked and what didn't. And now, as I said, I have investors where we're going to be launching many Kickstarter campaigns moving forward. But we also have investors where I've sold investment shares in Space Command, where they get a percentage of my producer's net profit for $7,500 a share. So I have about 40 investors, and that can be great too, because I needed something relating to Space Command the other day, and I called one of my investors, and I said, I said to him, you don't have to say yes to this, but I need $30,000, and he said it'll be in your account tomorrow, and it was. So,
wow.
So that's how it works. But you have to, yeah.
That's the other thing is ask. If you don't ask, worst that can happen is a no. But if you don't ask, nothing happens.
That's right. But what that means is you have to be clear on what you want, because a lot of people.
He'll be back. He'll be back.
Yeah.
We're gonna put all the links in the description here.
They don't get granular. They don't get specific. So specificity is what's needed.
Now we've got your email address, the link to the website. What is your YouTube channel so we can find it? We'll put a link there.
My YouTube channel is Mr. Sci-Fi. So that's Mr. MR period and then Sci-Fi, SCI-FI, Mr. Sci-Fi. And I post every few days. And not just Space Command. I post about Dune and everything science fiction, Constellation, and
Hi guys,
you name it. Yes,
I just subscribed.
I just did too.
Oh, that's great.
You got two more.
Here it is, Mr. Sci-Fi. Look at that. Subscribe for new videos. This is really helpful. We'll also put the link to this in the description for this episode of the show. There you are.
Great.
All the links.
You gotta pause the video. The audio of the videos come through.
Oh, sorry, Alan. Sorry about that.
Yep.
Sorry. Last question we have for you is this from Rumble. BMO Better says, if you could cast Chris and Alan in a movie as the leads, what genre would it be and what would it be about? So Alan and I in a show.
It would be about these amazing, incredible guys who spread joy and happiness wherever they go, and and it would be basically like I'd have them walking on water. It's I think anyone who opens up information, and I mean, we're all of us doing this from joy and passion. It's like everyone thinks that Hollywood is a bunch of creeps who are just cynical assholes, and there are those people, but there's also equal numbers of people who are doing it for passion and love, go home to their families, who are as good as their word, who mean what they say, who are not backstabbers. And I created 30 years ago, I created a roundtable of writers and directors and actors and producers, anyone above or below the line in film, TV, and books. And we meet every Thursday online and in person. It's called The Table. And we have thousands of members around the world now. And there's no cost. It's just come with a good heart. And anyone you can be starting out in your career, or you can have won Oscars. We have both. And but again, it's treating one in the Greenlighting Yourself book. I said the key to success as an artist is a mixture of confidence and humility. Confidence gets you where you're going. Humility allows you to learn along the way. So that's what I very much believe.
I just want to say thank you, Marc, for being on the show. We have to have you back when the next episode comes out. And I know we talked about doing a watch party.
Sure.
So we're going to do a watch party for, maybe a couple of the episodes, because I feel you're such a wealth of knowledge and you have a positive attitude. I feel like you can go to a dark place. You can black pill on things. I'm a white pill guy. I'm like positivity. You can do it. It's all possible. But you need a lot of passion, like go for your dream. That's good. But more than that, you need 90% is real information, how to get things done. You're one of those guys. So I really admire everything that you're doing.
Well, thank you, Chris, and my hat's off to you guys too. I mean, again, it's hard work, but it's joy. Every day is Christmas for me. And the one last thing I should say is that my wife Elaine, I met her when I was 20. We've been together 48 years, married 46. She writes and directs and produces with me. She's the best part of every day, and she had faith in me when no one else did, and here we are now. So it's been a dream come true.
Congratulations, Marc. Thank you again. We will have you back, and we'll put all the links in the description. Congratulations, your positivity. We need more of it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Well, I look forward to talking to you next, and thanks for everything you do.
Take care. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Awesome.
You bet.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.